Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum, boys and girls. Welcome to another edutational. You know what? Let me go ahead and just try that all over again because that was absolutely terrible. I have obviously not had enough coffee today, even though it's 8 o'clock at night. I need more coffee. Let me just do take two on that. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum, boys and girls. Welcome to the most edutainment podcast about Islam that you can stream at 8 o'clock on evenings if you're on the East Coast and 7 o'clock if you're in the Texas area. And I could tell you what time you'd be able to watch this in California, but that would require way too much math. But we are happy you are here this evening, the only show that is kind of directed by our audience, and we talk about the things and topics that are concerns to you. And ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I give you the hardest working imam that I know, Imam Azhar.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome this evening to another episode of Raw Islam with Imam Azhar slash Brother Carl. We welcome you here, and what we want to do today is to distinguish between who we are and the difference between us and other podcasts. There are times, I believe, in other podcast live streams that occur where they pull different people in to speak with you, the audience. In our podcast, we are founded on the basis of making us. So thank you for joining us once again as we discuss the topics that you select on Twitter every week. And today, it's a sweet and sour discussion in my books. But without further ado, I'm going to ask Brother Carl to do what he does every week and give us a rundown on the Twitter poll that went out through Venn Network and what you, our guests, selected for the topic tonight. Brother Carl?
Thank you, Imam Azhar. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, every Monday on Twitter, we post a poll that you can take part in so that you can help control the topics of the show. Obviously, we line up the poll, but if you go over to Twitter and you follow us at VENNNETWORK, every Monday, you can take part in this poll, and you can help the direction of the show. And tonight, our poll, as it was posted, was Morgantown, West Virginia. Ashra Nomi.
Asrar Nomani?
There, Ashra Nomani. And, of course, my personal grab bag favorite of What's the Deal With, which is just a random thing that is up in the news today, and whatever a hot topic would be. But as you guys saw while it was on the screen, it's the Morgantown and What's the Deal With that were our winners this week. So with that, back to you, Imam Azhar.
So this is the first time we have What's the Deal With, and I'm happy because it couldn't have come at any better time. And we are going to be discussing What's the Deal With California later on in our show tonight. Today we want to start out with Morgantown. As you know, those who follow me on Facebook, and please do send me a friend request if you're interested in following my journey of what I do here at the mosque and across the country. I was invited to speak at the West Virginia University last weekend in Designing Across Divides conference, where people of different faith backgrounds and abilities and professions came together to discuss the importance, the manner, the methods, and the ways to bridge the divides within our community in poor neighborhoods, in rural areas, to interfaith divisions, and the divisions that are happening as we speak in our nation and in our world. It was an honor to present at the West Virginia University and also discuss my experience when it came to the Pulse nightclub shooting and how the Muslim community worked towards bridging the divide within the community and preventing a spillout in the city and possibly the nation when it came to the Muslim community and the LGBTQ community, and also discussed about Islamophobia and how this is an opportunity for us as a people and a nation to bridge that divide. I ended with a few pointers that I felt were my lessons that I learned, and I felt that it's imperative that I share those lessons with others because all of us are working towards something wholesome and meaningful, need the tools and best practices of others to implement for a more swifter and sustainable change. Um, in regards to Morgantown, a very small town, which I felt was a unique town. To me, the entire town was a university town. I believe there's three or four campuses. It's stretched across the whole town. You have this little dinky little electric cart that goes from one campus to another. It was very cute, and it was a very beautiful sight to see a city or a town that's fully embracing education, academics, academia, students, and I felt a very good vibe at that place. Of course, the airport wasn't a place where flights would frequent, so I had to drive close to 2 hours from Pittsburgh to Morgantown, West Virginia, and then back for my return flight. But what I want to talk to you about Morgantown today was an experience that I learned of, and I'm going to seek forgiveness for my ignorance because I didn't know how big of a problem this was a few years ago. Myself, the wife of the Imam, and another sister who was visiting uh, from Washington, D.C., we were on our way to Juma prayer from the conference, and they talked about Asra Nomani and how this was the mosque that Asra Nomani had attended. And of course, that's not the topic of our discussion tonight, but I was clueless. I was clueless as to who she was and what the issue was. The masjid was a very small, beautiful family feel type of a mosque. Sisters had their entrance, brothers had their entrance. Brothers went upstairs and prayed, and I don't know where the sisters went up. I think another floor above to pray. And we prayed Jummah. The Imam was a nice Imam. He gave a sermon about trends versus needs, and we came back. The following night, I spoke to my good friend who's also in Virginia, but he was too far for me to meet, Brother Saud, and we talked about this, and he enlightened me as to what happened in this small town. Now, since that's not the topic of our discussion tonight, and I don't want to jump into that, but I want to talk about trauma when it comes in different packages in different places. When a community is raveled by a problem which may not be necessary, it leaves the community scarred for life. This can be said for New Zealand and its shooting. uh, Christchurch, New Zealand is changed forever. It doesn't matter how great the vigils were or how great of a performance Cat Stevens did, Use of Islam. The city's changed forever. Every city that's hit by man-made or natural disasters or problem, they are changed. And what happened there, where Islam was challenged, the status quo of Islam was challenged because someone felt that Islam needed a change and women need to pray in the front of the mosque, which doesn't take away nor does it give any more legitimacy to anyone, because if we read the history of Islam in an unbiased fashion, the rights that women gained 1400 years ago, it took the world close to that much time to gain half or three-quarters of those rights for the masses. So it's unfortunate that the Muslims themselves are ignorant of that, and we take the acts of Muslims to be the acts of Islam, when Islam and Muslims are two separate things, and we have to keep them separate so that we don't blur the line between the two. But nevertheless, when I looked back after, I realized that truly this town was shaken up by an unnecessary issue that hit the nation to the extent that even PBS did a documentary on it. I think it's called The Mosque in Morgantown. And you could check it up if you want to. But to me, I felt that this was something that could have been resolved and understood in the context of faith with great discipline and understanding. And I want to give you my example in regards to small towns because I used to be an imam at a very small town known as Port Charlotte, which was a very friendly, going town. A lot of baby boomers, millennials. There were Generation X, but a lot of snowbirds and a lot of elderly people. And everyone kept their respect and kept their distance, and things kind of moved on good. But an organization known as Act for America preyed on this small town to see how they can cause a rift and a divide by challenging the school board system of Charlotte County and saying that the textbook that was used for history was indoctrinating the children on Islam, and it was converting them without their knowledge, because the textbook has a testament of faith, but that's saying this is what the Muslims say. Just like if it's written Jesus Christ and we see Jesus Christ, doesn't take us into Christianity. And just by saying there's no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger, learning the context of Islam doesn't make someone a Muslim. It's something you do intentionally, it's something you do with knowledge. And so our town was shaken up. Our town was shaken up, from the teachers, the staff, the school board, the students, the newspaper, the city, and everyone started coming out of the woodworks with their opinions and their suggestions and their concerns and their fears. And it was non existent in my books until that moment. And so, Morgantown, being such a small town, taught me a lesson. And that lesson is a simple one: never feel that you're immune from problems that may arise. You don't have to be in a major city for there to be problems. You don't have to be in the heart of a country or in a popular country. Problems can stem anywhere at any time. And the only way to stop it, prevent it from happening, is to ensure that we are on top of our game, doing a proactive taking proactive measures, doing proactive effort, not waiting for something, God forbid, to happen and then take a reactive response. So, that, my friends, is Morgantown and my short experience of 3.5 days in Morgantown. And with that, I'll turn it back to Carl and see what he has to say and what our listeners, what you have to say. Carl?
So we do have one comment, of course, from our super fan, Sister Layla. Salam, Sister Layla. Thank you for joining us this
Alaikum.
evening. Always a pleasure. And I think the only thing that I would add personally is small towns are very interesting and unique, because you have to, I mean, for those that don't know, I come from a very small town in New England myself. You know, my high school graduating class was probably all of 20 people, and it was the largest graduating class in like years. So, I come from a very small New England town. So I get that, but I also get the misinformation and the rapid spread of, the whispers, backbiting. We're not supposed to do that, and there's a reason for that, and it's because it leads to misinformation and things like that. I remember when I moved here to Virginia, before I converted, the I know this might be a bit of a tell on my end. The high school that my wife attended was a private high school, and it was founded by the Saudi government. And there was a big thing about the textbooks that they were using to teach. Look, right, textbook, it says you have to kill all these people. It says in the textbook this is what they're indoctrinating them into. And so, it really is one of those things where it's like, okay, you're taking this one little thing way out of context, and you're messing everything up, and you're buying into the fear rather than taking a minute to learn. And unfortunately, especially the smaller the town, the quicker that is to happen.
And that is so true. That's why small towns all have a unique touch. Walaikum salam, Sister Laila. Before I forget to say that, thank you for joining us once again tonight. And yeah, so each town is very unique. While in all major cities, you could find a correlation and some level of symmetry. They're kind of the same. They got the same vibes, the same places, the same opportunities, the same restaurants, high end part of the city, the low end part. Like it's kind of the same. London, Paris, New York, it's kind of the same. But towns are very unique. Their demographics are very unique. And I feel this, that if those of us who live in small towns, especially for our listeners or whoever's going to be downloading this on iTunes or Google Play, or going to be sharing it with their friends. Remember, if you're in a small town, you have a bigger opportunity to make a greater impact in a small town than you do in a major city. Remember my words on this. It doesn't sound right, but believe me, you can do solid work in a small town and bring great change that you will not be able to accomplish in a major city. Just remember those words. If it doesn't make sense now, I think it's going to make sense somewhere down the road. So yeah, that was Morgantown. That was the trip to Morgantown, and that was what I call the sweet part of our discussion tonight. We're gonna go to a sour part, and before we do that, just an announcement, and I didn't tell Brother Carl this. Next Tuesday at this time, I will be at a Jewish synagogue participating in a reading of the names of the victims of the Holocaust. And as a Muslim leader of the community, I'll be participating in that ceremony and in that event. And I don't know if I'll be able to speak to you next week. We might do it a bit early, we might do it a bit late, or we might just do it on another day. So we'll keep you posted. But on a sour end tonight, Nipsey Hussle. Nipsey Hussle. Many of us don't know him, and truth be told, I didn't know him. And when I saw the first post of Russell Westbrook, who I follow, a post of him, I think, hugging Nipsey, and then I heard from a friend of mine that he passed away, and then I heard the comparison between him and Tupac. I started figuring out what was going on. And Nipsey was shot, I believe, 6 times. They just arrested the possible shooter, and he was a rap artist. He was a good person in his own ways, but the thing that he stood out for was he wanted to bring about change. He was actually working on putting together a seminar between the people in the hood and the police to bring about wholesomeness and understanding and to stop police violence. He was a solution maker. He was a game changer. It comes as a shock, and it comes somewhat as not a surprise that someone who's trying to do big things in places where people feel big things can't happen, his life ended so soon. But I posted today and I said that change makers sprout up throughout time. Their passing is a seed for others to sprout and continue. At the time of his death, I will love those people who adored him, admired him, loved his music, and loved what he did because he caught the eyes of big people and small people around the world and around his city. Again, he worked in the neighborhoods where he was brought up and he felt that change can happen there. So, in the absence of people of such who are so instrumental and vital for change to occur or for the hope of change to occur, their passing is a seed for others to sprout and continue. And I continue stating, I dream of a day when everyone will be a seed and we will certainly grow, converting dirt fields into lush gardens. May the dreamers of today be the leaders of tomorrow. And that's my tribute to Nipsey. Um, may he rest in peace. It's such a sad time, not for people who follow rap or artists, but for people who find people in their lives who give hope. We need to understand outside the scope of religion and culture. Hope is a blessing from God. And anyone who can give hope, they're a blessing from God. So may the cities of California and may the cities around America sprout tonight. May our seeds be sowed and may we sprout tomorrow to become the bridge makers, not the wall builders. May we be the ones who merge the playing field and not cause disarray and disruption in our societies. So, giving it back to Carl. Uh,
Amin.
Final words?
Final words. I don't have much to say on this topic because I don't really know. I mean, the only thing I knew was what was in the headlines and what I saw. I do know that it was another young gentleman who was making changes and was a change maker. You know, the kind of bad situation where he came from, but you're the hero because you go back and you don't forget where you came from. So, I know he did a lot of good in his community, and I know he stayed in there. But I also know there was a lot of concern about just the violence in general. And, I even saw Ice Cube, who's somebody that I follow, that I grew up listening to. And even he was saying that we need to stop with the violence. It's just not, 20, 30 years. I mean, God, let's to 95, 2005, 2015, yeah, 30 years later, the kind of stuff that Ice Cube was talking about, here we are still carrying the same conversation. So that was that. We have a comment from Sister Layla. Yay! It says, why is it always the ones who are game changers who are shot and killed? I also heard Nipsey was going to work on a documentary about Dr. Sebi, who claimed he had the cure of AIDS. I did actually hear something very brief about that this
Yeah,
morning, but I
that's
wasn't
very
paying
true.
attention.
He was working on that documentary. He was working on a project for bridging the violence in the cities. Again, there's two approaches. 99% of people approach is reaction. Like hold those signs, hold those banners, go to the police stations, march on the streets. I understand the frustration. I'm not putting anyone down tonight. But there's those who look at this whole thing from a side, from a distance, and say, you know what? How can we fix this problem? Because it's a matter of a shooting, a protest, a shooting, a protest, a protest, a shooting. It's like laces. You're gonna keep on weaving it in and out. How can we change the status quo? And as I said, that's you put your finger on the right button. Why is it always the people who do this? Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Tupac, Nipsey, and you know what? That's fine. We won't understand the wisdom of Allah behind this, but what I'll say is spreading fear and violence brings in a lot of benefit to the world that loves greed and money. To spread love and peace, it dismantles those institutions and industries. And it's not violent. We're not being violent when we spread love. We're not being violent when we sit down with our elected officials, our city officials, our police officers, and say, hey, guess what? Let's sit down and reanalyze the situation. There's some amongst us who think you're not human, and there's some amongst you who don't think that we are human. Can we figure this out? You know, AIDS has plagued the people for the longest time. There's been documentaries on if AIDS was man-made or whatever the case was. There's so much information out there. But the thing was, it's hurt a great segment of our population, a global population. Why not solve this problem? Because if we're here to solve diseases and bring forth remedies for problems and to make our world a better place, then I think this was in the right direction. But may God be with him at this time, and may our world look towards a better tomorrow for everyone, not just for themselves. That's really what I'm hoping for. Carl?
Amin. And I know you have a meeting to get to, so we will wrap this up for the evening. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Twitter. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on YouTube. Special shout out to Sister Layla. Thank you very much for always being the super fan that you are. Yay! I want to thank Imam Azhar for joining us this morning and this evening, and imparting his wisdom upon us, making Raw Islam what it is so that all may enjoy. If you've enjoyed the show, you can head over to vennetwork.org. You can check out all the shows over there, and you can see the other great shows and episodes that we have. You can catch up on all the past episodes of this show. And you can also find swag like what I'm wearing. You can also you can join the conversation over there. And I don't know why my brain isn't functioning tonight. And Imam Azhar has one more thing to say, so back to him.
To our listeners, to Sister Laila, to everyone, a challenge. Help us design swag that's going to be raw Islam and which is contemporary, which addresses issues, which speaks volumes. I don't want praise be to God or I trust God. I want something that's unique. And guess what, Carl? Any one of our participants, I want you to throw it out there tonight. I want you to throw it on Twitter. Any of our participants that gives us a winning design, we will give them $200. That's what I could afford. That's what we could afford right now. We'll give $200 to the person who gives us the best design. We want to make swag that turns eyes. We want people to see a strong message. It shouldn't be made. It doesn't need to be words. It could be an image that speaks a lot. There was an image that's coming in my mind just the last 2 days, but I can't draw it. And Carl, that was there was a shepherd and there's 100 sheep. And then the other side of the picture is there is one sheep and there is 100 shepherds. YouTube, CNN, Fox, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Like, who do you follow in this world today? That's how drastically our world has changed. To me, that speaks volumes. But again, let's put together some swag. Let's have some fun. This show isn't supposed to be somber. It's not supposed to be where we are teaching you or lecturing to you. This is a show of conversation. Remember, it is where Raw Islam peels the onion of culture, perceptions, ignorance, fear, propaganda, and we get to the core of what Islam truly is. And number two, we are here to converse, to spark discussions, to have greater discussions around the globe. So be a part of our discussions, be a part of this movement, and let's make our world a better place. Carl?
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, it brings us to the end of another episode of Raw Islam. Until next week or the week after or something, make sure you follow us on Venn Network on Twitter, Venn Network. We will say, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.